In their hundreds to Ludlow come in for the fair. There's men from the barn and the forge and the mill and the fold. The lads for the girls and the lads for the liquor are there, and there with the rest are the lads that will never be old. There's chaps from the town and the field and the till and the cart, and many to counter the stalwart and many the brave, and many the handsome of face and the handsome of heart, and few that will carry their looks or their truth to the grave. I wish one could know them. I wish there were tokens to tell the fortunate fellows that now you can never discern. And then one could talk with them friendly and wish them farewell, and watch them depart on the way that they will not return. But now you may stare as you like, and there's nothing to scan, and brushing your elbow unguessed at and not to be told, they carry back bright to the coiner the mintage of man, the lads that will die in their glory and never be old.
Cofio yr dynion Abersoz ym mhob rhan annisgwyl, nid just yn Ffrainc, nid just yn Gwlad Belg, nid just yn yr Eidal, ond hefyd yn Mesopotamia, yn yr Aifft, yn Palestina, yn Affrica, mewn mwy nac un ryfel oedd yn digwydd rhwng yr Almaenwyr a Prydain yn Affrica. The stori yn drist iawn iawn. Ond mae'n braf bod ni yn ei cofio fe heddiw. It's good for us that we should recall these things today. Thank you very much.
Son of the bishop, great-great-uncle to me, joined the Great War and left it by sea. This man, too weak for war, went anyway. The Royal Marines beckoned with bells, and less than a year since its formation, he found his place in observation. He flew, and this is not flight as we know it. This is the wind rushing, juddering and shakes. This is trial and error. Basil became observer. The Royal Naval Air Service filled the space above the waves, the eyes and protectors of the strong. This man, too weak for war, went anyway. Promotion followed, mentioned in dispatches, lieutenant, flight observer, senior intelligence officer, for his strength was more than bones and flesh, his offering more than muscle. This man, too weak for war, went anyway. To the glory of God, aged 28, Basil of Gwynflyn Llancanfelyn slipped beneath the waves in January 1918. The Mediterranean beckoned him, but it was the bells that brought him home. Cantref Gwaelod claimed their own. This man, too weak for war, went anyway. Twice mentioned in dispatches, his memorial read, "The bravest little man I ever met." Basil, who was told he did not belong, found his own path, found his own ways, found his own place, and went anyway. Now, Basil left a letter for his sisters to be read in the event of his death, and in it he said, "If the post-war generation managed to learn that might must never be allowed to triumph over right, then the sacrifice of the fallen will not have been in vain." I think those words still mean something today. Thank you.
Dear Dot, you're a stunner to write me such a long letter. Do you know it's the longest letter I've received since I came on this wretched business? I'm writing this in the orderly room at 9 p.m. and it will be one of the last private letters I shall write from here. For we move from Aber into camp next Tuesday. Out at sea.
Dear Billy, thanks muchly for your photo. It isn't half bad, though it might be better. I've suspicious little news, for very little ever happens these days. Aber is still the same place, but that's all that can be said for it. The girls in Alexander Hall just exist, and I've done more work this year than I've ever done before. In fact, I'm thinking of chucking college and getting a job of sorts after the end of the season. That is, if I can get into a military hospital somewhere, which is the desire of the dear lady in hall, commonly styled the matron. However, goodness knows what will happen by the end of June. A zeppelin may have put an end to our own precious selves, and 50 other things may have happened. I don't worry much now, though. I'm learning to take life as it comes to you and not to worry about next week. It seems the only thing to do in wartime.
Which you surround me. I try to deserve it, but I fear I never shall.
And how much I love them, and all your letters. You make me feel that your love is one of the big things, and I wouldn't abuse it for worlds. Looking back on things, I appear to myself to have been a precious little fool. At 17 and 18, I used to be frightful and have fits when I'd go and cry my eyes out and not know in the least what it was all about. Getting out of that now, I probably have cried less in the last 6 months than I have for years. The big things, Billy, seem too deep for tears, though they are blessed relief when they will come.
I say, Doc, what's your idea of a rattling good holiday? I think a shimmering beach on a hot day, a warm soft rock at my back, and a boat gently grating its keep 10 yards away as it swings in the tide. Of course, you're there. I'm not quite sure what you are doing, but I think either poking pebbles into my shoes or pouring sand down my neck. Presently we shall have a scramble around the rock pools and then a picnic with tea and row slowly back. And now I must go. This latest battles in the west is a bloody affair. Let us pray that it may be the last great battle in the west. Never will half the talks be told of the valour of our infantry and gunners, the heroism of the King Arthur's knights grow pale by contrast.
This last business out there is pretty rotten, isn't it? Hope to goodness you're all right, dear. I have a vision of you with a big splint and arm in a sling and one eye bandaged up. By the way, I don't mean that I should object to seeing a fragmentary Billy plus many yards of bandage and a disinfectant smell, only it would be so rotten for you. There's a fool I am. Nice comforting sort of conversation I'm giving you. These days it's been raining horribly. Do you know it's just 2 years ago today that we sat together on that stone bridge up in Elysian Grove? Do you remember wrapping me up in your trench coat against the rain? Goodbye, dear. Don't take any notice of the silly things I say. Billy and all.
Last night, kissing the familiar the star-spangled banner.
My grandfather Hugh drowned when his ship was torpedoed by U-boat number 91 on the 9th of October 1918 off the northern coast of Spain. It was 3:22 in the morning. We can confirm this as he was still wearing his watch, which had stopped at that time. He was 44 and had sailed all through the horrors of World War I. He no doubt had hoped that and prayed that he would make it home to his wife Anne, my grandmother. Parked that night, there were 3 other men from Borth. David Llewellyn Lewis, who was the boatswain, who was aged 26, William Llewellyn Roberts, who was 15, and David Kenneth Jones, who was 16. All were drowned and their bodies were never found. 4 men out of the 15,000 merchant marine sailors who were killed during World War I. My grandfather's body was pulled out of the water by local fishermen and later buried in a little village called Oroa in northern Spain. And the body was later moved to a cemetery in Bilbao, where it lies to this day. There is a happy postscript to this story. In 2009.
All this passed through Harry's mind as he stared at the black cushion. the one thing that his father had brought home from the war, and which he put on display, was a black velvet cushion, and right in the middle of it was the embroidered insignia of his father's regiment. The entwined letters HAC stood for the Honourable Artillery Company. His father had been taught to embroider when he was recuperating in hospital. A strange thing for a man to be doing, Harry thought, but it must have taken quite a lot of skill to do it. And there it was, all was placed on the settee in the lounge, a reminder of it all. His father didn't talk about the cushion, it just sat there. A beautiful, jewel-like presence with the incongruous emblem of a bursting shell, becoming a part of the gloomy, threatening, silent atmosphere that surrounded his home. Harry shrugged his shoulders, turned up his collar, and walked down the dreary street with many thoughts. Thank you for giving me the extra time. As I say, I wanted to talk about those who came home, who, some of them, didn't live a happy time after that, and huge effects on many, many families were caused, of course, by both world wars. And we need to remember those people and their struggles, as well as the people who died. Diolch yn fawr. He could see that he was growing quieter and didn't talk much to him or to his mother.
Quiet. Thank you.